We've all been there, right? That cold email, that cold call that just falls flat. But what if I told you the entire interaction is won or lost before you even introduce yourself? Today, we're getting into the neurology of influence, specifically in that make or break first 90 seconds. Forget what you know about sales scripts, because we're talking about the science of the human brain. So, let me ask you a question. When does a sales pitch actually begin? Is it when you say your name, when you talk about your product? Think about it for a second. Most of us would probably say, well, it's when I start talking, of course. But according to the research we're diving into today, that is completely 100% wrong. The real game, the one that actually matters, has already kicked off before a single word leaves your mouth. Okay, so let's unpack this because it's a huge idea. The real fight for someone's attention and trust isn't happening with clever words aimed at their logical brain. Nope. It's won or lost in those first few seconds, deep inside the subconscious, instinctual part of their nervous system, the part that's hardwired to say no just to safe. So, here's how we're gonna break this down. First, we'll look at that 90-second window of opportunity. Then, we'll slice it into 4 crucial intervals. After that, we'll dive into the specific kind of language that just slips past their defenses. We'll even see it all in action with a role play. And finally, we'll talk about the responsibility that comes with these tools. Sound good? Let's jump in. All right, section 1. Let's start thinking about those first 90 seconds, not as a conversation, but as a neurological event. There's a roadmap for this, a framework our source material calls the 90-second control map. So what on earth is this control map? Well, think of it like this. It's a sequence of actions that works with the brain's natural programming instead of fighting against it. You're not trying to argue or convince. You're aligning with their neurology to build a connection before their critical, overthinking mind can even put its guard up. Now, this 90-second map isn't just one big block of time. It's broken down into 4 very specific intervals. And here's the thing. Each one builds on the last. It's like building a house of cards. If you mess up the foundation, the whole thing comes tumbling down. Here's the sequence at a glance. First, the authority imprint that happens in the first 10 seconds, then the novelty break to snap them to attention. After that, identity softening, which is where they become open to new ideas, and finally, capturing meaning, where you make the whole thing matter. Let's break down each one. Okay, this first 10 seconds is maybe the most important. And get this, it's completely nonverbal. The other person's brain is asking one question: leader, follower, friend, or foe? And it's judging you based on your posture and your stillness. The tactic here is called controlled stillness. When you join that video call, just settle, be still for a moment. No nervous fidgeting. Don't rush to speak. This tells their brain you're not a threat, and you're not needy. It signals authority. So you've got authority. Now what? Well, this is where most people fall into a trap. They go with a predictable script, right? Hi, how are you? And the other person's brain just goes on autopilot. It knows this script and tunes out. Your job here is to break that pattern. Do something unexpected. It could be a simple pause or an opening line they've never heard before. That little bit of novelty forces their brain to wake up and ask, whoa, what's this? Now, once you've established authority and you've captured their attention with something new, something really cool happens in their brain. Their rigid idea of who they are starts to soften. That little voice in their head that says, I'm the kind of person who hangs up on salespeople, it gets a lot quieter. Suddenly, their defenses aren't just lowered, they're kind of irrelevant. And this is the moment when your words have incredible power. In this last little window of our 90-second map, your goal is to take this conversation from just interesting to truly important. And you do that by sharing a real insight, something that shows you genuinely get their world. When you do this right, they feel seen, not sold to. And that feeling, believe me, is so rare that it earns you the right to lead the rest of the conversation. All right, we've set the neurological stage. We've got their attention, their defenses are down. Now let's talk about the actual words you use. We're moving away from the old idea of persuasion and into a much more powerful concept the source material calls installation. And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look, persuasion is basically a debate. It's a negotiation with someone's logical mind, and that always creates resistance. Installation, on the other hand, it bypasses that whole debate. It's about planting an idea that resonates with the story they're already telling themselves. It feels like their idea, so there's nothing to resist. So how do you actually do this? Let's focus on 2 amazing linguistic tools. First, embedded commands. These are instructions that you hide inside normal sentences. And second, maybe even more powerful, is identity installation. This is where you stop pitching a product and start describing a better version of them, an identity they can step right into. An embedded command is, well, it's pretty wild. You're essentially talking to two different parts of the brain at the same time. The conscious, logical mind just hears you making a casual observation. But the unconscious mind, the part running the show, hears the action words and takes them as a direct command. Check out this example. On the surface, it sounds like you're just talking about some people, but listen to the command hidden inside. Notice how fast everything can make sense. The person's unconscious mind hears that, and it starts to run that program. They begin to feel things making sense, and their critical mind never even saw it coming. It's subtle, and it's incredibly powerful. Okay, theory is great, but let's actually see how this all fits together. Let's imagine a salesperson, we'll call her Alex, making a cold video call. We're going to walk through her first 90 seconds, play by play. The video call connects. Alex appears. Now, notice what she doesn't do. No awkward wave, no, hey, can you hear me? She's just settled, calm. She lets a beat of silence hang in the air before she speaks. That, right there, is the authority imprint. It communicates total control and zero neediness. And here comes the novelty break. Instead of the tired old, "Hi, my name is Alex from XYZ company," she just shatters the script. Most calls like this start with a 5-minute pitch. I find it's better to start with a single, crucial observation. See that? She just called out the boring pattern and promised something way more valuable. The prospect's brain is now fully engaged. This is just brilliant. Alex isn't talking about her product. She's describing an aspirational identity. There's a type of leader. I mean, who doesn't want to be that kind of leader? The prospect immediately starts to see themselves in that description, to step into that role Alex is offering. That is identity installation, and the defenses are completely gone. And to wrap up the first 90 seconds, Alex lands an embedded command. The sense sounds harmless, but the hidden instruction is, feel the clarity you need to move forward. She is literally installing a feeling, a state of mind, directly into the prospect's nervous system, setting the entire emotional tone for the rest of the call. Look, we've just gone over some incredibly potent tools for influence. But with great power comes great responsibility, right? These techniques are not about manipulation. They're about becoming a profoundly effective communicator. And I really want to end on this point because it might be the most important takeaway of all. If you try to fake any of this, if you're just performing confidence that you don't actually feel, these tools will absolutely backfire. The human nervous system is the world's best lie detector. Real authority comes from real authenticity. Without that, these techniques will just expose you. So, I'll leave you with a final thought to chew on. In your next conversation, your next meeting, ask yourself this. Are you just talking to the person, or are you speaking to their inner narrator, the part of them that's actually writing the story and making the decisions? Because that difference is everything.